All he could think to do was run away, but his feet felt cemented to the floor. He came all this way just to embarrass himself. He couldn't have used just a little bit of common sense. He ended it. It's over. It's been over. His vision was clouded with once dormant tears, now ready to erupt. He was ashamed of his foolishness, his incapableness for love, to be loved. I don't know how to say this, but he pressed his knuckles over his lip to trap the sobs that threatened to escape. He was lovesick and pained. It took him so long to come to terms with his emotions, but just one simple box unleashed the dam to his heart. Love with you. There was no point in trying to hold back his tears any longer. Acid rain leaked from his eyes, stinging his cheeks as they slipped past. Taekook's expression faltered before quickly turning back into his usual stoicism. I'm in love with you, he sobbed. It felt so good to finally say it. He hid his face with his hands in abashment. He's not sure if after this he could ever love again. Taekook would forever leave a permanent stain on his humanity. Unexpectedly, he was enveloped in a warmth he had been craving, contrasting with his frigid skin. He cried into Taekook's chest, mumbling incoherent confessions of his love and how wrong he was. Jungkook, love, look at me. Taekook's fingers snuck under his chin, lifting his head up to look at him. His eyelashes were clumped together with fresh tears as he looked up at his enemy and lover. I love you too. Their lips collided, mending the bridge that had been burned between them. He fisted his hands into Taekook's old band shirt, one that he's had since before they were together. It was worn and familiar. His heart was filled to the brim with love and adoration. The kiss was practiced and refined, unlike past ones. It was a dance they had practiced millions of times and had now perfected. Their tongues slipping together like two pieces of a puzzle, the perfect fit. He was all melty in Taekook's arms like the snow melting off of his jacket as he stepped into the warm shelter. That's what they were, fire and ice, hot and cold. Opposites really do attract. He pulled back only a centimeter to breathe but not get too far away. He was afraid that Taekook might disappear into thin air or that he might come to his senses again. It's okay for him to be a little nuts sometimes. Only if it means that he'll take Jungkook. Come inside, you're freezing. Taekook ushered him inside promptly. The fresh smell of one of Taekook's dishes wafted into his nose the second he walked in. Taekook was always a fabulous chef. He could and would make anything Jungkook wanted. Taekook's arms were bracketed around Jungkook as he guided him towards the sofa. He crumbled into the plush material, immediately getting cozy like nothing had changed. It gave him coming home from long nights at work into Taekook's awaiting arms. He would rest Jungkook's sluggish body on the couch, spooning him until Jungkook was long asleep. The memories brought a small smile to his face. He let his eyes travel around the place, seeing what he did once Jungkook left. Jungkook was very picky, opting for plain and simple rather than Taekook's extravagance. But surprisingly, it looked the same. Guilt tumbled up the back of his throat, making him swallow hard. Taekook still hadn't moved on either. I guess that means they're both on the same page. Lost in a twisted fantasy that they created, wishing it could be real once more. He shivered, goosebumps rumbling up on his frigid skin. What are you making? Jungkook sniffled. Taekook was too busy layering Jungkook in blankets to look at him directly. Oh, broth. Would you like some? Jungkook stared at the massive silver pot on the stove with desire. Please. He held his hands out like a child begging for coins. Taekook delicately placed the steaming mug in his hands. He blew on the surface of the liquid gently. Even with his eagerness, He knew he would get burned. The rim of the mug was pressed against his lips as he took a nice sip. The flavorful broth still burned his tongue, but it was worth it. It tasted like home. The ceramic mug felt nice and sturdy in his hands. It felt expensive. He ogled the dish, hoping to find some sort of logo on it. Maybe he'd buy one of his own. He gaped once his eyes landed on the black L that was etched on the front. Tea hung still in it. He still had his mug. The one he would drink tea out of every morning before work. He kept it. Tea Hyung sauntered over with a cup of his own, taking a seat next to Jungkook rather than across from him. "I think we should talk." He was surprised to hear those words come out of Tea Hyung's mouth. His eyes focused on Tea Hyung rather than the relic that lay in his hands. "I think we should too. Tell me why." Jungkook's brows furrowed. "Why what? Why you?" Tea Hyung's words got caught in his throat. His eyes filled with sympathy. "Why you left?" His heart throbbed in his chest. It was so many thoughts and emotions that were flooding his brain. "But that's what love does to you." "I was unhappy." Is that all? Jungkook's fingers tapped against his glass, thinking about how to answer. He chewed on his bottom lip. "I think we got tired of each other. We never wanted to see each other anymore." Tae Hyung nodded, although Jungkook could tell he was struggling to accept the fact that Jungkook might be right. They both hurt each other, but Jungkook's wounds were still tender. He wanted to let go, but he wouldn't allow himself to do so. For years he had suffered with his own truth, never to tell his enemy that lay before him. It was all the words he never said nor even wrote down. He had no other choice but to be honest. Honesty was the only way to get back inside Tae Hyung's heart. "I didn't think you loved me anymore." He kept his eyes down, gazing lifelessly at his thighs, anything to avoid looking at Tae Hyung. He could sense that he was hurt. "Oh, Jungkook." He would never get over how Tae Hyung said his name. He made it sound so beautiful, full of life and love. He said it like he wanted to, not because he had to. "I've always loved you." Jungkook tore his eyes away from his lap. Silence had never been quite so loud. "You, and I always will." He had to kiss him. His lips were practically begging for it. Their lips met in a hungry kiss. Tae Hyung kissed him like Jungkook was a delectable treat, like he wanted to devour him. Tae Hyung tugged Jungkook into his lap, slipping his tongue while he did so. They didn't finish their talk. Jungkook had barely done so much as kissed someone over these past couple of years. He felt like he had to stay loyal to Tae Hyung. His subconscious knew nobody would ever be able to take care of him like Tae Hyung does. He was so good to him, even when he didn't deserve it. His fingers grazed over his skin like he was a sculpture made of glass. They're slow and sensual, building up their own rhythm. Tae Hyung's massive California king bed feels like heaven as Tae Hyung pushes him into it. It's like they were floating on a cloud in their own atmosphere, their own oasis. Their oasis was in a drought, and Tae Hyung is here to put a stop to it. His flowers have been dead and dry for so long, out of season. But now, he's ready to bloom again. Sprouts were left behind as Tae Hyung's fingers glided up and down his sides. Tae Hyung's movements slowed. "Did I scare you?" Tae Hyung's voice was laced with concern and worry. He always knew how to take care of him just right. He still made sure Jungkook was okay while still playing into their subtle fantasies. Jungkook shook his head. "No, Tae Hyung, never." His lips already felt deprived, even if they were only kissing just a minute ago. He slung his arm around Tae Hyung's neck, pulling him down for more. Tae Hyung's hands found sanctuary on his waist, his thumbs teasingly dipping under his waistband, the sudden warmth shocking him. Taehyung's lips trailed from his lips to his ear. "Let me make it up to you." His breath was hot against his skin, making him melt into his touch even more. "Please." It came out as a beg rather than a wish. His hands dipped under his sweats. "You're all I could ever want. I want you to know that," he preened under Taehyung's wistful gaze. Taehyung's hands slithered over to Yoon's, pinching them brashly. Jungkook let out an embarrassing squeal. His cheeks burned at his sudden outburst from just a simple touch. Peachy lips curled into a fond smile above him. "I'm not sure how you could have gotten more beautiful." Taehyung's hand swept up and down. Jungkook rested his head against the pillow, allowing himself to enjoy. "You're so perfect." Taehyung nuzzled his face into Jungkook's stomach. His nails gently scratched at Taehyung's scalp as the two rested in silence. His thighs slid apart, revealing bite marks and red splotches along with the usual hickeys. Safe to say he's glad it's not summer. Taehyung. He would have cared about the wine he let out but spirit. Taehyung hummed against the pouch of his stomach. He bit his lip, calculating the perfect sentence to say. It felt like the first time all over again. His hands were shaking, his heart rate was at an all-time high. The words he wanted to say were lost in the thick of time. He needed Taehyung in ways he couldn't express. "I need you to take something off, please." The please felt like an afterthought. He had forgotten how much time had passed. He forgot that they had separated. They fit into their roles so easily, too easily.